You are listening to Bedtime Dreamy Tales. Please make sure you have smashed that like button and subscribe to our channel for new story. Story title: The Emperor's New Clothes. Once upon a time, in a grand and bustling kingdom, there lived an emperor who was excessively fond of new clothes. He was so passionate about fashion that he spent all his money on his attire. The emperor had little interest in his soldiers and rarely attended the theater or the hunt, except to show off his latest outfits. With a different suit for every hour of the day, it was always said of him, "The emperor is sitting in his wardrobe," instead of "the emperor is sitting in council." The emperor's capital was a lively city, full of joy and activity. Strangers arrived daily at the court, bringing news, goods, and exotic fashions from distant lands. The emperor's love for new clothes was well known, and merchants from across the world would try to win his favor with rare and expensive fabrics. One day, two cunning swindlers arrived in the city. They called themselves master weavers and boasted of their ability to weave the most beautiful and elaborate fabrics. But their clothes had a unique quality. They would remain invisible to anyone who was unfit for their office or extraordinarily simple in character. "These must be magnificent clothes," thought the emperor. "If I had such a suit, I could easily find out who in my kingdom is unfit for their office and distinguish the wise from the foolish. This fabric must be woven for me immediately." He commanded his treasurer to give the weavers a large sum of money to begin their work. The two rogues set up looms in a grand hall of the palace and pretended to work diligently, though they did nothing at all. They asked for the finest silk and purest gold thread, which they secretly stowed away in their knapsacks, and then continued their sham work at the empty looms until late at night. After some time had passed, the emperor grew curious about the progress of his new clothes. However, he felt uneasy, remembering that anyone who was simple or unfit for their office would be unable to see the fabric. Though he was confident in himself, he decided to send someone else to check on the weaver's progress first. "I will send my faithful old minister to the weavers," the emperor decided. "He is a man of sense, and no one can be more suitable for his office than he is." The old minister entered the hall, where the weavers pretended to work with all their might at their empty looms. The minister opened his eyes wide in astonishment. "I cannot see the slightest thread on the looms," he thought, but he kept his thoughts to himself. The impostors courteously invited the minister closer, asking whether the design pleased him and whether the colors were not beautiful. They pointed to the empty frames, and the poor old minister looked and looked, but saw nothing. "What?" thought he. "Am I a simpleton? Have I never thought so myself? No one must know this now. Can it be that I am unfit for my office? No, I must never confess that I cannot see the cloth." "Well, Sir Minister," said one of the rogues, still pretending to work, "you do not say whether the stuff pleases you." "Oh, it is excellent," replied the old minister, looking through his spectacles. "This pattern and the colors, yes, I will tell the emperor how very beautiful I think they are." "We shall be much obliged to you," said the impostors, describing the colors and pattern of the imaginary fabric. The old minister listened attentively, ensuring he could repeat their words to the emperor. The rogues asked for more silk and gold to complete their work, but they continued to stash away the materials and pretended to weave as diligently as before. The emperor sent another officer to see how the weavers were progressing and to check if the cloth would soon be ready. This officer, like the minister, saw nothing but empty frames. Yet, he also praised the imaginary fabric, fearing he might be considered unfit for his office. Finally, the emperor himself wished to see the magnificent cloth. Accompanied by a select group of his court, including the two honest men who had already admired the non-existent fabric, he went to the weavers. The impostors, aware of the emperor's approach, pretended to work more diligently than ever. "Is not the work absolutely magnificent?" said the two officers. "If your majesty will only be pleased to look at it, what a splendid design, what glorious colors!" They pointed to the empty frames, convinced that everyone else could see the exquisite workmanship. The emperor strained his eyes but saw nothing. "How is this?" he thought. "I can see nothing. Am I a simpleton or unfit to be an emperor? That would be the worst thing that could happen." Aloud, he said, "The cloth is charming. It has my complete approval." He smiled graciously and looked closely at the empty looms. His retinue also strained their eyes, hoping to see something, but they saw no more than the emperor. Nevertheless, they all exclaimed, "Oh, how beautiful!" and advised the emperor to have a new suit made from the splendid material for the upcoming procession. The whole city was abuzz with talk of the emperor's new clothes. The emperor, delighted with the progress, presented the impostors with medals and titles, declaring them gentlemen weavers. The night before the Grand Procession, the rogues pretended to roll the cloth off the looms, cut the air with their scissors, and sewed with needles without thread. "See," they cried, "the emperor's new clothes are ready." The emperor and his courtiers came to the weavers, who raised their arms as if holding something. "Here are your majesty's trousers, here is the scarf, here is the mantle. The whole suit is as light as a cobweb. One might think they have nothing on, but that is the beauty of this delicate cloth." "Yes, indeed," said all the courtiers, though none could see anything. "If your majesty will be graciously pleased to take off your clothes, we will fit on the new suit in front of the mirror," said the rogues. The emperor undressed, and the rogues pretended to array him in his new suit. The emperor turned around before the mirror, admiring his reflection. "How splendid His Majesty looks in his new clothes," everyone cried. "What a design! What colors! These are indeed royal robes." The emperor's train-bearers pretended to lift the ends of the imaginary mantle and carried it with great ceremony. The emperor walked under his high canopy through the streets of his capital, and the people cried out, "Oh, how beautiful are our emperor's new clothes! What a magnificent train! How gracefully the scarf hangs!" None would admit they saw nothing, fearing to be deemed simpletons or unfit for their office. "But the emperor has nothing on," a child cried out. "Listen to the voice of innocence," exclaimed the child's father. The words spread quickly among the crowd. "But he has nothing on," shouted the people. The emperor, vexed but realizing the truth, knew the people were right. Yet, he continued the procession, and the lords of the bedchamber took even greater pains to appear as if they were carrying the invisible train. The emperor learned a valuable lesson that day: the importance of honesty and the dangers of vanity and pride. From then on, he became a wiser and more just ruler, focusing on the well-being of his people rather than his wardrobe. And the tale of the emperor's new clothes was told and retold, reminding everyone of the value of truth and integrity. If you like this story, please give this video a like. For more stories, go to bedtimedreamytales.com. See you in the next story.